Hello and welcome to this continuing, ongoing look at the Witch of Edmonton by Thomas Dekker, John Ford, and William Rowley et al. This is the third session. Yes, I have returned. Thanks to Sarah for covering for the last two sessions and getting us where we are in this play, which you look at and think, oh, it's going to be full of horror and terror and witches and evil things, and I don't think anything really sets the scene up for the true horror of when enter Morris dancers. But somehow the team got through that sequence and have lived to tell the tale. And we are going to conclude the session with the close of the play from towards the end of Act 4, Scene 1, with this wonderful set of readers. Reading today, Sawyer is...
Sarah Blake, actor, writer and director in Germany.
Reading Ratcliffe and Warbeck today is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I feel traumatized from the Morris dancing.
We all feel soiled. It's fine. Reading Old Banks is...
Steve Longstaffe, retired academic in the north of England.
Reading Anne and Carter is...
Briony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire, never trust a man with bells on his knees.
Reading Justice and Frank is...
Or anywhere else.
Lois, another retired academic in London.
Reading Cuddy and First Countryman is...
Aliki Chapple, who quite likes Morris dancing.
Reading Sir Arthur and Winifred is...
Lynn Freitas. I'm a composition teacher, and I'm very tired, and I'm coming to you from the Northwest United States.
And reading primarily Katherine and old Thorney, but like many people will probably step in to read a dog at some point, is...
Rachael, ready to follow the call of the wild with the Faustian twist.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and stepping in if needs be. So we're midway through Act 4, Scene 1. A lot of stuff has happened. Thatcher's been burnt. People have been accused of things. It's been all sorts of chaos. But the stage has now been left somewhat clearer as Sawyer has a chance to chat with the dog. So enter the dog.
My dear tomboy, welcome. I'm torn in pieces by a pack of curs clapped all upon me, and for want of thee. Comfort me, thou shalt have the Teton on.
Bow wow, I'll have it now.
I am dried up with cursing and with madness, and have yet no blood to moisten these sweet lips of thine. Stand on thy hind legs up, kiss me, my Tommy, and rub away some wrinkles on my brow by making my old ribs to shrug for joy of thy fine tricks. What hast thou done? Let's tickle. Hast thou struck the horse lame as I bid thee?
Yes, and nipped the sucking child.
Oh, my dainty, my little pearl. No lady loves her hound, monkey or paroquet as I do thee.
The maid has been churning butter 9 hours, but it shall not come.
Let him eat cheese and choke.
I had rare sport among the clowns in the moors.
I could dance out of my skin to hear thee. But my curl pate, that jade, that foul-tongued whore Nan Ratcliffe, who, for a little soap licked by my sow, struck and almost had lamed it. Did I not charge thee to pinch that queen to the heart?
Bow wow wow, look here else.
Enter Anne Radcliffe mad.
See, the man in the moon has built a new windmill, and what running there's from all quarters of the city to learn the art of grinding.
I thank thee, my sweet mongrel.
Hoida! A pox of the devil's false hopper! All the golden meal runs into the rich knaves' purses, and the poor have nothing but bran. Hey, Derry down! Are you not Mother Sawyer?
No, I am a lawyer.
Art thou? I prithee, let me scratch thy face, for thy pen has flayed off a great many men's skins. You'll have brave doings in the vacation, for knaves and fools are at variance in every village. I'll sue Mother Sawyer, and her own sow shall give in evidence against her.
Touch her.
And that's to the dog who rubs against her.
Oh, my ribs are made of a pained hose, and they break. There's a Lancashire hornpipe in my throat. Hark how it tickles it with doodle, 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 doodle. Welcome, sergeants, welcome, devil. Hands, hands, hold hands and dance around, around, around.
And there's some dancing as we have the re-entrance of Old Banks with Cuddy, Ratcliffe and Countryman.
He's here. Alas, my poor wife is here.
Catch her fast. Have her into some close chamber, do. For she, as many wives are, stark mad.
The witch! Mother Sawyer, the witch! The devil!
Oh, my dear wife, help, sirs.
And Anne is carried off by Ratcliffe and Countryman.
You see your work, Mother Bumby.
My work? Should she and all you here run mad, is the work mine?
No, on my conscience! She would not hurt a devil of 2 years old.
And re-enter Ratcliffe and Countryman.
Wait, that's not me.
Oh, now, what's become of her?
Nothing. She's become nothing but the miserable trunk of a wretched woman. We were in her hands as reeds in a mighty tempest. Spite of our strength, so away she brake, and nothing in her mouth being hurt but the devil, the witch, the devil, the witch, the devil. She beat out her own brains, and so died.
It's any man's case, be he never so wise, to die when his brains go a wool-gathering.
Masters, be ruled by me. Let's all to the justice. Hag, thou hast done this, and thou shalt answer it.
Banks, I defy thee.
Get a warrant first to examine her, then ship her to Newgate. Here's enough if all her other villainies were pardoned to burn her for a witch. You have a spirit, they say, comes to you in likeness of a dog. We shall see your cur at one time or other. If we do, unless it be the devil himself, he shall go howling to the jail in one chain, and thou in another.
Be hanged thou in a third, and do thy worst.
How, father? You send the poor dumb thing howling to the jail? He that makes him howl makes me roar.
Why, foolish boy, dost thou know him?
No matter if I do or not. He's bailable, I'm sure, by law. But if the dog's word will not be taken, mine shall.
Thou bail for a dog?
Yes, or a bitch either, being my friend. I'll lie by the heels myself before Puppison shall. His dog days are not come yet, I hope.
What manner of dog is it? Didst ever see him?
See him, yes, and given him a bone to gnaw 20 times. That dog is no court-foisting hound that fills his belly full by base wagging his tail. Neither is it a citizen's water spaniel, enticing his master to go a-ducking twice or thrice a week, whilst his wife makes ducks and drakes at home. This is no Paris garden bandog either that keeps up. Whoa, 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 to have butchers bring their curs thither. And when all comes to all, they run away like sheep. Neither is this the black dog of Newgate.
Oh, Goodman's son, fool, for the dog of Hellgate.
I say, Goodman, father, fool, it is a lie.
He's bewitched.
A gross lie, as big as myself. The devil in St. Dunstan's will as soon drink with this poor cur as with Any Temple Bar laundress that washes and wrings lawyers.
Oh, the dog's here!
The
The
dog's
dog's
here!
here!
It was the voice of a dog.
The voice of a dog? If that voice were a dog, what voice had my mother? So am I a dog. It was I that barked so, father, to make coxcombs of these clowns.
However, we'll be coxcomb no longer. Away, therefore, to the justice for a warrant, and then, Gamma Girton, have at your needle of witchcraft.
And prick thine own eyes out. Go, peevish fools.
And exuent old banks, Ratcliffe and Countryman.
Yingle, you had liked to have spoiled all with your bowings. I was glad to have put them off with one of my dog tricks on a sudden. I'm bewitched, little cost me not, to love thee. A pox that Morris makes me spit in thy mouth. I dare not stay. Farewell, Dingle, you horse and dog nose. Farewell, witch!
And exit Cuddy.
He is not worth thy worrying. Run at a fair again. That foul-mouthed knight. Scurvy Sir Arthur. Fly at him, my Tommy, and pluck out his throat.
No, there's a dog already biting. Conscience.
That's a sure bloodhound. Come, let's home and play. Our black work ended. We'll make holiday.
And exit. Yes, and a full cast audio adaptation of Gamma Girton's Needle is available on the podcast, which you can listen to now. Always nice when the play puts in a plug for our own work. Sadly, we have nothing on the Black Dog of Newgate, but you know, there's only so much that we can do. Some lovely doggy interaction. You know, people do treat dogs just the same over time, don't they? It's just so many Puppyson.
It's great.
There's some lovely stuff and also evil stuff in there. I mean, it's fascinating. There seems to be some gameplay going on, possibly with names of things that's being played with. There's also just what's the dog been doing? Well, went off, nipped the sucking child. So that's not a horrific headline from a tabloid newspaper. It's a fascinating little back and forth. Thoughts in the room as we close the scene finally from yesterday. So of course, anyone who was here yesterday, feel free to reference where this sort of fits in. Lynn.
Yeah, up to now, the play has surprised me with how well it hangs together. But I think the episode with the Ratcliffes really feels extraneous. In a production, I would cut it. They don't appear elsewhere that I know of. Yeah, Mother Sawyer's doing all kinds of bad things all over town, but it's already a pretty long text. So I don't know that and this scene is so long that I think we've got a place where we maybe need to streamline a little bit.
Oh, do we have defence for Anne Ratcliffe? I'll go to Sarah the Briony, then Stephen.
It is a long scene. I do take your point, Lynn, but I think the important thing about this is that up until now we haven't really seen Mother Sawyer do anything particularly reprehensible. Yeah, okay, sure, she misled Cuddy and he ended up in a pond, which was quite funny. But she hasn't actually done anything really awful. It's not until the dog appears in this scene that, we discover that he has been doing some stuff on her behest that we haven't seen. But then also you get this, I mean, it's fairly horrific. And I mean, yeah, the fact that it's this scene with Anne Ratcliffe is cut in between the kind of the funny stuff, with the dog. That's come before it. It's like, I don't know, it's like we had we have the burn the witch stuff early on, and then we have this little comic interlude with her talking to the dog, and now we're back to something that's really deeply horrific. And I think it's important that, because up until now, all my sympathies have been with Mother Sawyer. And now it's like, now obviously I'm more ambivalent, and it's like, oh yes, is this the dog? We were talking yesterday about, how much of this is a reflection of what's inside her, or how much of it is the dog's influence, and that ambivalence. I personally feel that this seems quite important for taking that storyline on to the next level.
And bail for the dog as well. This constant flipping between tones, because I mean it is quite random in a sense, but maybe the randomness is part of its charm. Briony, then Stephen, then Rachael.
I don't know. I could go either way with cut it or don't cut it. I'm always reluctant to want to cut any female parts in a play like this generally anyway, but personally it's not the best mad writing I've ever read. I know that their understanding of mental illness was not very fact-based at the time, but even so I've read better, but also I didn't quite get, because she's mad and ranting when she comes on, what does the dog even do? You know what I mean? She's already, I don't know. I'm not sure what purpose it served.
Stephen.
So this isn't what I was going to say, but just to respond or to build on what Sarah said, I was suddenly put in mind of H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know if anyone ever read Lovecraft, but it's full of people's minds just being warped, just like that. And there's all kinds, and they get turned into another kind of alien being or whatever it is. And it happens really, really quickly. And then they're quite likely to kill themselves or kill somebody else or whatever, because they've been taken over by, the thing from outer space. So after what Sarah said, I thought, oh, right, okay. This is like Dracula, kind of mesmerizing somebody, except they don't do something cool and sexy. He just goes, okay, right, kill yourself. And they do. So it's this kind of sort of Lovecraftian horror, maybe. But the point I was going to make is, if I remember correctly, back to our old friend Changeling, one of the actors in The Changeling was actually name-checked for his brilliant performance of a mad person, and his signature line was doodle doodle do, if I remember correctly.
I forgot.
So it's sort of Briony's point as well, which is the whole point of the Changeling, according to that reference, is that they may have just laughed at people. It might have just been completely and utterly bizarre behavior, which was seen as kind of horrifying and or entertaining on the stage. So the fact that she flips from being kind of a normal character to being a mad one, and she's not pretending to get the hand of some gorgeous young female, she's just doing it, might again have woken you up, if you need waking up, in the middle of this very long play. I agree we could cut it though. We could cut it, but I'm just trying to work out why it's there.
It's. I think what's interesting about it is that it's almost casual from Sawyer. There's going, oh, make her mad, and immediately she comes on, and within a few seconds she's dead, and it's like you've been handed the nuclear weapon codes, and it's just, oh well, I'll just press this button, it'll be fine. Boom, you've just taken out a major city. If you play with fire, then people get burnt in. And it's just, what's Sawyer thinking that's the consequence she's going to get for using this power? I'm just wondering if there's an element there. But that could be an overreach. Who knows? Rachael.
I was going to say, depending on like the time of day or something like that, I feel like this Anne thing, it could be a mad scene, but it could also be, I think there's a lot of sensational stuff here. There's a lot of sexualization here too, but of Sawyer's relationship a little bit with the dog, saying, "Thou shalt have the teat anon," unless the teat means something different than
No.
what I'm
No,
thinking.
you're bang on. You're bang on.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, so I think there's like this sexualization happening, and then when Anne comes in, there's this dancing, and witches dancing. I think she's been, possessed or converted to this witchness. And I put in the chat the name Hans Boldung Grienne. He was an assistant to Albrecht Dürer, and they were around during the turn of the century, 1500. Grienne was really known for a lot of like witch stuff and stuff like that, and like witch paintings and all those things where women are dancing around nude or in certain clothing or doing sensational things. So when a production is talking about lighting, how would you light this scene, and what would you make, what is the time of day? And Anne refers to the moon, so there's some lunacy here, the link to the moon and the supernatural and things like that. Perhaps I have to say, don't cut it or keep it, but
Aliki.
I mean, it's the first scene I've come into, so I'm obviously pro keeping it because I thought it was rather fabulously creepy and also funny in a weird way. But I just wanted to reply to Rachel's point about the teat. Witches were purported to have a third nipple from which their familiars suckled like babies, so it's more like nurturing than sex, I think, but also very much sets her up as a witch with a familiar.
Okay, well, we've got our groove on, as it were. Let's dip into the next scene and see where we go. And Act 4, Scene 2, we have entering 2 Frank. Frank is asleep. Enter Katherine.
Brother, so sound asleep. That's well.
No, not I, sister. He that's wounded here as I am. All my other hurts are bitings of a poor flea, but he that here once bleeds is maimed incurably.
My good sweet brother, for now my sister must grow up in you, though her loss strikes you through, and that I feel the blow is deep. I pray thee be not cruel to me too, by seeing you cast away in your own helpless sorrow. Good love, sit up. And if you can give physic to yourself, I shall be well.
I'll do my best.
I thank you. What do you look about for?
Nothing. But I was thinking, sister.
Dear heart, what?
Who but a fool would thus be bound to a bed, having this room to walk in?
Why do you talk so? Would you were fast asleep?
No, I'm not idle. But here's my meaning. Being robbed as I am, why should my soul, which married was to hers, live in divorce and not fly after her? Why should I not walk hand in hand with death to find my love out?
That were well indeed. Your time being come, when death is sent to call you, no doubt you shall meet her.
Why should not I go without calling?
Yes, brother, so you might, were there no place to go when you're gone, but only this.
Truth, sister, thou sayest true. For when a man has been 100 years hard travelling o'er the tottering bridge of age, he's not the 1,000th part upon his way. All life is but a wandering to find home. When we're gone, we're there. Happy were man could hear his voyage end. He should not then answer how well or ill he steered his soul by heaven's or by hell's compass, how he put in, losing blessed goodness, sure, at such a sin, nor how life's dear provision he has spent, nor how far he in navigation went beyond commission. This were a fine reign to do ill and not hear of it again. Yet then were man more wretched than a beast, for, sister, our dead pay is sure the best.
'Tis so, the best or worst, and I wish heaven to pay, and so I know it will that traitor, that devil Somerton, who stood in mine eye once as an angel, home to his deservings. What villain but himself, once loving me, with Warbeck's soul would pawn his own to hell to be revenged on my poor sister?
Slaves, a pair of merciless slaves. Speak no more of them.
I think this talking hurts you.
Does me no good, I'm sure. I pay for it everywhere.
I have done, then. Eat, if you cannot sleep. You have these 2 days not tasted any food. Jane, is it ready?
What's ready? What's ready?
I have made ready a roasted chicken for you.
Enter a maid with chicken.
Sweet, wilt thou eat?
A pretty stomach on a sudden. Yes, there's one in the house can play upon a lute. Good girl, let's hear him too.
You shall, dear brother.
Exit maid.
Would I were a musician, you should hear how I would feast your ear.
And a lute plays within.
Stay, mend your pillow, and raise you higher.
I'm up too high. Am I not sister now?
No, 'tis well. Fall to. A knife. Here's never a knife. Brother, I'll look out yours.
And takes up his vest. Enter the dog, shrugging, as it were, for joy, and dances.
Sister! Oh, sister, I'm ill upon a sudden, and can eat nothing.
In very deed you shall. The want of food makes you so faint. Here's none in your pocket. I'll go fetch a knife.
Exit hastily, having seen the bloody knife.
Will you? 'Tis well. All's well.
And Frank searches first one pocket, then the other, finds the knife, and then lies down. The dog runs off. The spirit of Susan comes to the bedside. Frank stares at it and then turns to the other side. But the spirit's there too. Meanwhile, enter Winifred as a page and stands sadly at the bed's foot. Frank, affrighted, sits up, and the spirit vanishes.
What art thou?
A lost creature.
So am I too. When? My she-page.
For your sake, I put on a shape that's false, yet do I wear a heart true to you as your own.
Would mine and thine were fellows in one house. Kneel by me here, on this side now. How darest thou come to mock me on both sides of my bed?
When?
But just now, outface me, stare upon me with strange postures, turn my soul wild by a face in which were drawn 1,000 ghosts, leapt newly from their graves to pluck me into a winding sheet.
Believe it, I came no nearer to you than yon place at your bed's feet, and of the house had leave, calling myself your horseboy in to come and visit my sick master.
Then 'twas my fancy, some windmill in my brains for want of sleep.
Would I might never sleep so you could rest, but you have plucked a thunder on your head whose noise cannot cease suddenly. Why should you dance at the wedding of a second wife, when scarce the music which you heard at mine had ta'en a farewell of you? Oh, this was ill, and they who thus can give both hands away, in the end shall want their best limbs.
Winifred, the chamber door's fast.
Yes.
Sit thee then down, and when thou'st heard me speak, melt into tears. Yet I, to save those eyes of thine from weeping, being to write a story of us two, instead of ink dipped my sad pen in blood. When of thee I took leave, I went abroad only for pillage, as a freebooter, what gold soe'er I got, to make it thine. To please a father, I have heaven displeased, striving to cast 2 wedding rings in one. Through my bad workmanship, I now have none. I have lost her and thee.
I know she's dead, but you have me still.
Nay, Her this hand murdered, and so I lose thee too.
Oh, me!
Be quiet, for thou my evidence art. Jury and judge, sit quiet, and I'll tell all.
While they are conversing in a low tone, enter at one door Carter and Katherine, at the other the dog, pawing softly at Frank.
I have run madding up and down to find you, being laden with the heaviest news that ever poor daughter carried.
Why, is the boy dead?
Dead, sir? Oh, father, we are cozened. You are told the murderer sings in prison, and he laughs here. This villain killed my sister, see else, see.
And takes up his vest and shows the knife to her father, who secures it.
A bloody knife in the pocket.
Bless me, patience.
The knife! The knife! The knife!
What knife?
Exit the dog.
To cut my chicken up, my chicken. Be you my carver, father?
That I will.
How the devil steals our brows after doing ill.
My stomach and my sight are taken from me. All is not well within me.
I believe thee, boy. I that have seen so many moons clap their horns on other men's foreheads and strike 'em sick, yet mine to scape and be well. I that never cast away a fee upon urinals, but am as sound as an honest man's conscience when he's dying. I should cry out as thou dost, all is not well within me. Felt I but the bag of thy imposthumes. Ah, poor villain. Ah, my wounded rascal. All my grief is, I have now small hope of thee.
Do the surgeons say my wounds are dangerous, then?
Yes, and there's no way with thee but one.
Ah, would he were here to open them.
I'll go fetch him. I'll make an holiday to see thee as I wish.
A wondrous kind old man.
Your sins the blacker, so to abuse his goodness. Master, how do you?
Pretty well now, boy. I have such odd qualms come cross my stomach. I'll fall to, boy. Cut me.
You have cut me, I'm sure. A leg or wing, sir?
No. A wing. Would I had wings but to soar up to yon tower. But here's a clog that hinders me.
Re-enter Carter with servants bearing the body of Susan in a coffin.
What's that?
That? What? Oh, now I see her. 'Tis a young wench, my daughter, sirrah, sick to the death, and hearing thee to be an excellent rascal for letting blood, she looks out at a casement and cries, "Help, help, stay that man. Him I must have or none."
For pity's sake, remove her. See, she stares with one broad open eye, still in my face.
Thou puttedst both hers out like a villain as thou art. Yet, see, she is willing to lend thee one again and find out the murderer, and that's thyself.
Old man, thou liest.
So shalt thou, in the jail, run for officers.
Oh, thou merciless slave! She was, though yet above ground in her grave, to me, but thou hast torn it up again. Mine eyes, too much drowned, now must feel more rain.
Fetch officers.
And exit Katherine and servants with the body of Susan.
For whom?
For thee, sirrah. Some knives have foolish posies upon them, but thine has a villainous one. Look.
Shows the bloody knife.
Oh, it is enamelled with the heart blood of thy hated wife, my beloved daughter. What sayest thou to this evidence? Is't not sharp? Dost not strike home? Thou canst not answer honestly and without a trembling heart to this one point, this terrible, bloody point.
I beseech you, sir, strike him no more. You see, he's dead already.
Oh, sir, you held his horses. You are as arrant a rogue as he. Up go you too.
as you're a man, throw not upon that woman your loads of tyranny, for she is innocent.
How? How? A woman? It's grown to a fashion for women in all countries to wear the breeches.
I'm not, as my disguise speaks me, sir, his page, but his first, his only, his lawful wife.
How? How? More fire in the bedstraw.
The wrongs which singly fell upon your daughter are on me multiplied. She lost a life, but I, a husband, and myself must lose. If you call him to bar for what he has done?
He has done it, then?
Yes, 'tis confessed to me.
Dost thou betray me?
Oh, pardon me, dear heart. I'm mad to lose thee, and know not what I speak. But if thou didst, I must arraign this father for 2 sins, adultery and murder.
Re-enter Katherine.
Sir, they are come.
Arraign me for what thou wilt. All Middlesex knows me better for an honest man than the middle of a marketplace knows thee for an honest woman. Rise, sirrah, and don your tacklings. Ring yourself for the gallows, or I'll carry thee thither on my back. Your troll shall to the jail go with you. There be as fine Newgate birds as she that can draw him in. Pox on's wounds.
I have served thee, and my wages now are paid. Yet my worst punishment shall, I hope, be stayed.
And they exit. Frank's. I know they didn't have as many, crime shows back in the day, but get rid of the weapon.
He was going to eat chicken with it, and he hasn't even wiped the blood off.
Yeah, I mean,
Grim.
really, this no CSI training at all. Clearly. The CSI officers from Two Lamentable Tragedies will be on this like a shot. They'd been going, where's the crime? Where's the locus in? There's, absolutely. How did they not catch him earlier? I mean, really, the man's an idiot. Anyway, Rachael, then Eric.
The bloodletting, if he's being leeched or something by a doctor, and that's what's been happening over these, past several days, I guess, because he's not been eating or something like that. The sucking of leeches, the sucking of the dog on that witch's teeth, the bloodletting from stabbing Susan. There's such imagery, I think, connections between that imagery.
This is feeding us with many things, which are quite nicely disturbing. Eric, then Aliki.
Yeah, it is disturbing, and there's a part of me going like, clearly this guy has not seen Arden and Faversham, because he would know that you either leave the weapon there or you just get rid of it. I don't know.
It's 1621, people. We've had a lot of crime plays under the bridge by now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's also interesting. There was something in there that made me think maybe this play is very tight in some places, where it's a performance text that has been tidied up. That's what I was thinking, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Aliki.
I have a question and an observation. So the question is, I have served thee and my wages now are paid. Sounds as if it's addressed to the dog. Is the dog still there at that point? Or to the devil or someone?
I know, I wondered about that too, because he hasn't served Carter. And I can't see who else he could be talking to except the dog. And I don't even know whether my worst punishment means execution or damnation.
I was leaning towards damnation, but I don't know. And the observation is that there's so much subtext in this scene. There's so much of what I think of as this very modern thing where we know something that one character knows and the other character doesn't, and it's all and it just adds up to this very oppressive and creepy atmosphere, which I found tremendously powerful.
Yeah.
Lois.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Katherine simply sees the knife, reaches conclusions from it and just says, I'll go get one from the kitchen. I mean, she just immediately thinks of something to say. I mean, with great sort of presence of mind. And then the way everybody is kind of talking around Frank without, saying exactly what they're thinking. And yeah, it's a funny atmosphere. You just keep sort of waiting for the whole thing to blow up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that it feels very filmic in that sense. You almost expect the close up in the eyes and the seeing and the sting and that rather than saying that's big and theatrical in that way. Stephen, I think.
Yeah, Lois pointed out yesterday that Carter, I think, was sort of distracted with grief, and I think this is the next time we see him. And so there's a little arc there as well, isn't there? That he's there's that kind of crazy atmosphere in the play, but he's felt it like a man, as it were, and now he's back to get even, and that's an interesting. I mean, whether you think of it as sort of patriarchal reassertion, or whether you think of it as kind of good old-fashioned revenge for a loved one. There's that sort of. I mean, there's so much else going on. You kind of miss it, so that's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, because there's a logistical question about this bringing the body of Susan in a coffin on, because it hasn't been that long before this kind of setup would be paid off, as it were, in realistic terms. So, I mean, there's a lot of imagery being thrown at us. We've got the dog doesn't say anything, but he's there doing dog things. We've got the body of Susan being brought on in that sort of present it to your murderer, maybe they'll bleed kind of way. We've got a dumb show with the spirit of Susan in the middle of a scene. A scene which was actually a very low-key two-hander. I mean, this scene's doing so much stuff again. It's throwing so many things. Briony, I think, has been waiting for a while, and Sarah, then Lynn.
Yeah, just to really agree that it's very interesting how composed Katherine and Carter are in this scene, and patient in getting their revenge. But also we get another little crime scene detail out of this scene, because I was not aware that, especially because it was me at the time that did it, the stabbing, that Frank had put her eyes out as well. That's like next level, that's not just he's killed her for his own personal gain reasons, whatever. There was no need to do that. That's twisted.
Really, he didn't do that, did he?
According to Carter says that he put both her eyes out.
I think he. Well, no. I mean, for one thing, Frank says he sees her with one eye wide open, staring at him. She doesn't seem to bleed in front of him, but he feels she's looking straight at him. And I think when Carter says "I puts both hers out," he just means you killed her.
Oh, right.
I think he means he made her sightless by killing her.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah, just to tie in what Aliki said about the subtext, that's been, I mean, you weren't here the last 2 days, Aliki, but that's been going on all through the play, and it's just been making us all go, because people are saying one thing and meaning the other. And the other thing that the play's been doing is wrong-footing us a lot of the time. And both those things come together here, because I don't know about anyone else, but I was actually expecting, given the way the conversation was going, first of all, I was expecting Carter to actually stab Frank, to murder him. And then I was actually expecting, there was one moment, and I can't find it now, but Winifred had a line. And then when she starts to cut up the chicken, and she had a line, and because we're so used to this kind of double speak within the play of oh, he's saying this, and actually it has a double meaning because we as the audience know that he's done this. I was actually expecting her to kind of stick that knife in him, and neither of them did. And then all of a sudden Carter's back, and we think, oh yeah, right, okay, he's gonna stab Frank now, and it's like, no, he brings in the coffin of Susan. So So yeah, again, I was actually like Briony said yesterday, we're all being led by the nose. Like whatever I'm expecting to happen, just is not happening in this play, and it's continuing with that, and it just seems to be raising the stakes with it every single scene.
Yeah, and Winifred, who we should remind everyone is disguised as a page, so you have this semi-comic moment of going, "Oh, woman!" In the midst of all this. I mean, it doesn't have to be played that way, but it might get a laugh. Lynn, then Lois, then Eric.
Yeah, so we were all a little perplexed by the fact that everyone takes Frank at his word that someone else murdered Susan and then tied him up. They just seem to automatically believe him, and then after a little while, it's like, wait a minute, and they figure out no, he did it actually. I wonder if you could choreograph it or block it somehow to imply that the presence of the dog here opens their eyes, like if the dog somehow puts it in their head just to realize Frank's been guilty all along. I mean, I don't know. Does that sound really stupid? Is that dumb?
Yeah. What is the dog's role here? Is the dog, trying to get him caught, or is the dog having any effect? Eric, then Sarah, then Rachael.
I think Lois was first.
Yeah, I think the dog's invisible for one thing. I mean, he can be sometimes. And the other thing, I was following on from Sarah's point, really, about everybody's behavior. What's interesting in this play is that people don't generally take vengeance by stabbing other people. They go to the law, just as the characters in the previous scene are going to the justice. I mean, it's a very different world from, Jacobean revenge tragedy. This is a community, and for good and for bad.
Eric.
Yeah, I was going to make a point about how Katherine, at the beginning of her, when she enters, she kind of goes, "Oh, you must eat or you'll kill me with grief." I can't remember what the line was. I posted it in the chat a few minutes ago, but it was, I pray you will, so on and so forth, or you will kill me with grief. And it's like, okay, is this going to happen? But that was interesting. And also I had a question whether the reference to Newgate birds is like the first time that we sort of encounter birds meaning women in early modern drama, or is it just like, have we seen this before and I've missed it? Like, oh, she's a fine bird, kind of referring to women.
I missed the line for that, so I can't.
It's in Carter's last speech. He goes, "Your troll shall to the jail go with you. There be as fine Newgate birds as she that can draw him in." And obviously, I'm assuming that was a reference to crows as well as the actual people who.
They've already had that reference to the Black Dog of Newgate, which, as we now know, was a two-part play that was put on at some point, but now lost. But it's also used to refer metaphorically to, I don't know, jailers and corrupt people in the prison, and I suspect that's also true of Newgate birds. Yeah, your troll shall to the jail go with you. There be as fine. Yeah, I think it seems to me there are a lot of women in Newgate that look just as fine as she does. I mean, in other words, you can't tell really who's jail bait and who isn't.
Who was next? I've lost track. Was it Sarah, then Rachael, and then we will need to move on.
It doesn't matter. I was just going to come back on I'll try and answer Lynn's question about whether it's the dog. I mean, I think Katherine sees the knife, and the dog does appear, as she sees the knife. So you can say that the dog is kind of responsible maybe for that. But I mean, the fact that she actually sees the knife and then goes to her father, I mean, I don't know that they're all under the spell of the dog there. I think, she's seen the knife and she's put two and two together. I did wonder, though, actually, although the dog's already gone, I did wonder if there was some sort of thing with the dog. Maybe this is why Winifred betrays Frank. you know, I mean, is it just that oh, I'm very good and virtuous, and so I will, of course, you know, betray my husband even though I love him because he's done a terrible thing, or is there some kind of, you know, something going on there? Again, it's so ambivalent. You can read so much of this dialogue two different ways and come up with several different motivations for what people are doing. Maybe she's being virtuous, but maybe she's also under the influence. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because the dog's sort of exulting at the discovery of the knife, is, you know, shrugging as it were for joy. We all practice our joy shrugging, and whatever that is, and dances, and yeah. So it's, I don't know. It's that question of whether the dog is actively what the dog interacts with when they're doing something. Or whether it's there to highlight the moment and just go, haha, I'm evil, I can have it both ways. I made this kind of thing. Rachael.
I haven't read Faust in a long time, so my memory might be slipping on this, but you know, he makes that deal with Mephistopheles, and then he winds up in jail for life when he's an immortal. And it's kind of like this thing. I think that how Aliki is talking about the subtext. When I was reading for Katherine and going back in that, it sounded like he was thinking of killing himself or bringing up suicide in a way. And to what Lynn said about the black dog, you know, being there helping the discovery that, you know, perhaps the black dog is helping this discovery because, you know, the devil doesn't feel like waiting too long for his souls or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, in production terms, the question of, you know, where do we play the dog card? We can play the dog card wherever we like. We don't have to follow the script. So the presence or absence of the dog could be, you know, he could be curled around Frank for a lot of this. You know, there's all sorts of options. Just a little note on the dumb show effect, of course. The spirit of Susan, there are two of her appearing one side, then the other side. I mean, how do you do that? I can think of lots of ways you could do that, but yeah.
And then one's in the coffin.
And then there's one in the coffin as well. So how many Susans do you need for this show? And yeah, costuming, masks, question mark. Anyway, we need to move on. I say sadly, it's almost dog time. I was going to say, Briony, could you be the dog for the next stretch, as we have additional dog business in the coming scene. I don't think you're in Act 5, Scene 1. Enter Mother Sawyer.
Still wronged by every slave, and not a dog bark in his damned defence. I am called witch, yet I am myself bewitched from doing harm. Have I given up myself to thy black lust thus to be scorned? Not see me in 3 days. I am lost without my Tomerlin. Prithee come. Revenge to me is sweeter far than life. Thou art my raven, on whose coal-black wings revenge comes flying to me. Oh, my best love, I am on fire, even in the midst of ice, raking my blood up till my shrunk knees feel thy curled head leaning on them. Come then, my darling. If in the air thou hoverest, fall upon me in some dark cloud. And as I oft have seen dragons and serpents in the elements, appear thou now so to me. Art thou in the sea? Muster up all the monsters from the deep and be the ugliest of them, so that my bulge show but his swarth cheek to me. Let earth cleave and break from hell, I care not. Could I run like a swift powder mine beneath the world, up would I blow it all to find out thee, though I lay ruined in it. Not yet come? I must then fall to my old prayer. Sancti bicetur nomen tuum. Not yet come. The worrying of wolves, biting of mad dogs, the mangers and the...
Enter the dog, which is now white.
How now? Whom art thou cursing?
Thee. Ah, no, it is my black cur I am cursing for not attending on thee.
I am that cur.
Thou liest. Hence, come not nigh me.
Whoa, whoa!
Why dost thou thus appear to me in white, as if thou wert the ghost of my dear love?
I am dogged, and list not to tell thee, yet to torment thee. My whiteness puts thee in mind of thy winding sheet.
Am I near death?
Yes, if the dog of hell be near thee, when the devil comes to thee as a lamb, have at thy throat.
Off, cur.
He has the back of a sheep, but the belly of an otter, devours by sea and land. Why am I in white? Didst thou not pray to me?
Yes, thou dissembling hellhound. Why now in white more than at other times?
Be blasted with the news. Whiteness is day's footboy, a forerunner to light, which shows thy old rivaled face. Villainies are stripped naked. The witch must be beaten out of her cockpit.
Must she? She shall not. Thou'rt a lying spirit. Why, to mine eyes art thou a flag of truce. I am at peace with none. 'Tis the black colour or none which I fight under. I do not like thy Puritan paleness. Glowing furnaces are far more hot than they which flame outright. If thou my old dog art, go and bite such as I shall set thee on.
I will not.
I'll set myself to 20,000 fiends to have thee torn in pieces then.
Thou canst not. Thou art so ripe to fall into hell that no more of my kennel will so much as bark at him that hangs thee.
I shall run mad.
Do so. Thy time is come to curse and rave and die. The glass of thy sins is full, and it must run out at gallows.
It cannot, ugly cur. I'll confess nothing. And not confessing, who dare come and swear I have bewitched them? I'll not confess one mouthful.
Choose, and be hanged or burned.
Spite of the devil and thee, I'll muzzle up my tongue from telling tales.
Spite of thee and the devil, thou'lt be commended.
Yes.
Condemned.
Yes. When?
And ere the executioner catch thee full in's claws, thou'lt confess all.
Out, dog.
Out, witch, thy trial is at hand. Our prey being had, the devil does laughing stand.
And stands aside. Enter Old Banks, Ratcliffe, and Countryman.
She's here. Attack her. Witch, you must go with us.
And they seize her.
With her? To hell?
Oh, no, old crone. Your mittimus shall be made thither, but your own jailers shall receive you. Away with her.
My Tommy, my sweet tomboy. Oh, thou dog, dost thou now fly to the kennel and forsake me? Plagues and consumptions.
And she is carried off.
Let not the world witches or devils condemn. They follow us, and then we follow them.
Enter Cuddy Banks.
I would fain meet with my Ningle once more. He has had a claw amongst them. My rival that loved my wench is like to be hanged, like an innocent. A kind cur where he takes, but where he takes not, a dogged rascal. I know the villain loves me.
Woof!
No, are you there? A Tom's voice. It is not he. This is a dog of another hair, this. Bark, and not speak to me. Not Tom, then. There's as much difference betwixt Tom and this as betwixt black and white.
Hast thou forgot me?
It's Tom again. Prithee, Ningle, speak, is thy name Tom?
Whilst I served my old dame Sawyer 'twas. I'm gone from her now.
Gone? Away with the witch, then, too. She'll never thrive if thou leavest her. She knows no more how to kill a cow or a horse or a sow without thee than she does to kill a goose.
No, she has done killing now, but must be killed for what she has done. She's shortly to be hanged.
Is she? My conscience, if she be, 'tis thou hast brought her to the gallows, Tom.
Right. I served her to that purpose. 'Twas part of my wages.
'Was no honest servant's part, by your leave, Tom. This, remember, I pray you, between you and I entertained you ever as a dog, not as a devil.
True. And so I used thee doggedly, not devilishly. I have deluded thee for sport to laugh at. The wench thou seekest after thou never spakest with, but a spirit in her form, habit, and likeness.
I do not then wonder at the change of your garments, if you can enter into the shapes of women, too.
Any shape to blind such silly eyes as thine, but chiefly those coarse creatures, dog or cat, hare, ferret, frog, toad.
Louse or flea?
Any poor vermin.
Seems you devils have poor, thin souls, that you can bestow yourselves in such small bodies. But pray you, Tom, one question at parting. I think I shall never see you more. Where do you borrow those bodies that are none of your own? The garment shape you may hire at brokers?
Why wouldst thou know that, fool? It avails thee not.
Only for my mind's sake, Tom, and to tell some of my friends.
I'll thus much tell thee. Thou never art so distant from an evil spirit, but that thy oaths, curses, and blasphemies pull him to thine elbow. Thou never tell'st a lie, but that a devil is within hearing it. Thy evil purposes are ever haunted, but when they come to act, as thy tongue slandering, bearing false witness, thy hand stabbing, stealing, cozening, cheating, he's then within thee. Thou playest, he bets upon thy part, although thou lose, yet he will gain by thee.
Aye, but then he comes in the shape of a rogue.
The old cadaver of some self-strangled wretch we sometimes borrow and appear human, the carcass of some disease-slain strumpet we varnish fresh and wear as her first beauty. Didst never hear? If not, it has been done, and hot luxurious lecher in his twines, when he has thought to clip his dalliance, there has provided been for his embrace a fine, hot, flaming devil in her place.
Yes, I am partly a witness to this, but I never could embrace her. I thank thee for that, Tom. Well, again I thank thee, Tom, for all this counsel, without a fee, too. There's a few lawyers of thy mind now. Certainly, Tom, I begin to pity thee.
Pity me? For what?
Were not possible for thee to become an honest dog yet. 'Tis a base life that you lead, Tom, to serve witches, to kill innocent children, to kill harmless cattle, to destroy corn and fruit, etc. 'Twere better yet to be a butcher and kill for yourself.
Why, these are all my delights, my pleasures, fool.
Or Tom, if you could give your mind to ducking? I know you can swim, fetch, and carry. Some shopkeeper in London would take great delight in you and be a tender master over you. Or if you have a mind to the game, either at bull or bear, I think I could prefer you to maul cutpurse.
I should kill all the game, bulls, bears, dogs and all, not a cub to be left.
You could do, Tom, but you must play fair. You should be staved off else. Or if your stomach did better like to serve in some nobleman's, knight's, or gentleman's kitchen, if you could brook the wheel and turn the spit, your labour could not be much. When they have roast meat, that's once or twice in the week at most. Here you might lick your own toes very well. Or if you could translate yourself into a lady's arming puppy, there you might lick sweet lips and do many pretty offices. But to creep under an old witch's coats and suck like a great puppy, fie upon! I've heard beastly things of you, Tom.
The worse thou heardst of me, the better 'tis. Shall I serve thee, fool, at the self-same rate?
No, I'll see thee hanged. Thou shalt be damned at first. I know thy qualities too well. I'll give no suck to such whelps. Therefore, henceforth, I defy thee. Out and avaunt!
Nor will I serve for such a silly soul. I am for greatness now, corrupted greatness. There I'll shug in and get a noble countenance, serve some Briarian footcloth strider that has 100 hands to catch at bribes, but not a finger's nail of charity. Such, like the dragon's tail, shall pull down hundreds to drop and sink with him. I'll stretch myself and draw this bulk small as a silver wire. Enter at the least pour tobacco fume, can make a breach for. Hence, silly fool, I scorn to prey on such an atom's soul.
Come out! Come out, you cur! I will beat thee out of the bounds of Edmonton. And tomorrow we go in procession, and after that thou shalt never come in again. Thou goest to London, I'll make thee go about by Tyburn, stealing in by Thieving Lane. If thou canst rub thy shoulder against a lawyer's gown as thou passest by Westminster Hall, do. If not, to the stairs among the banddogs. Take water, and the devil go with thee!
And exit, followed by the dog barking.
Woof.
Lovely. So, we've got effectively two scenes here. We've got Sawyer and Dog, and there, then a little bit of plot happens, which is, Caesar take her away, and then we get Cuddy and Dog, and they're both fascinating little exchanges. I mean, it's like Cuddy goes, look, I've heard some things about you. Maybe you've thought about, doing less evil. Maybe just starting small and working your way down. You've worked your way to good later. There's something really sort of lovely, because to Cuddy it's this cute little dog, but no, it's doing bad. It's saying bad things, and he knows what bad things are. Good Cuddy. So many things, and then as well the exchange between Sawyer and the dog of just that disappointment in what demonic life forms can do for you. It's always such a bad bargain. Aliki then Briony.
A tremendously psychologically astute scene, right? I mean, take the talking dog and the devil out of it, and think about, I don't know, your mate who's a bit creepy around women, and then you start to hear that maybe he's been more than a bit creepy, and you're like, come on, tell me it's not true. Really, really beautiful. I loved doing it, and I'm falling in love with this play. I hope the rest of it's good.
Yeah, broadly. I mean, there isn't that much left to go, so but the beginning, generally the room's been positive about. Briony.
Yeah, I had this kind of sense yesterday. I wondered with the way that the dog interacted differently with different people. And I agree with what other people suggested about how it is a little bit of a reflection on the person. But I kind of got this sense that, and this kind of confirmed it, this last scene for me, that Mother Sawyer was kind of the in for the dog, and then from there on it was just spiraling and drawing more people into it and getting more chaotic, and that kind of, for me, that it's kind of just confirmed that he is working to his own agenda completely. And yeah, what a wonderful character. Thank you for letting me read that last scene. That was brilliant.
Yeah, so Sawyer summoned the creature, and now it's running amok and doing all sorts of other things. Oh yeah, I love that. Lynn.
Well, I was having a really hard time kind of following what was going on between Cuddy and the dog, and what's the point of this scene. Although I do have one really interesting takeaway when the dog says, "Hence, silly fool, I scorn to prey on such an Adam's soul," and then Cuddy says, like, "Fine, off with you." And Cuddy's a little bit of a simpleton. So is what this scene telling us is that this sort of simplicity of nature and being unsophisticated is kind of protection against evil.
I think
he's less vulnerable because he's not as smart.
I'll go to Lois then Sarah.
Yeah, I think Cuddy is absolutely lovely, actually, from beginning to end. And I don't even think he was out to rape Katherine, as we were talking in the first session. I mean, I think he just wanted her to love him or something. He wanted a magic charm. But I think he's just too naive to think even in those terms. And the fact that he just sort of responds to a talking dog. "Oh, you can talk, right? What else can you do? Go with me." And I don't know. I think he's absolutely lovely from beginning to end. And it's just such a brilliant contrast with all the horrible things the dog is doing in other scenes, and the real quite chilling scene that we just had, in fact.
Yeah, and the fact that someone in the play is actually willing to resist evil, and just say there is another way. Just say no. Just say no. Sarah, then Briony.
Yeah, I don't know that I would describe him as simple, because, I know he is simple in a way, but I don't think it implies that he lacks, intelligence. I mean, it actually, he's really emotionally intelligent, actually, and what Lois says is true. Yeah, he's naive in that he doesn't necessarily recognize evil when he sees it, but that could be because he's just a genuinely good person, and so it kind of glances off him. And we were talking about this theory that it's his innocence in a way that it's like, rather than the dog influencing him, he influences the dog. Because yesterday with the Morris men section, the dog appears and he causes mischief, but it's kind of just fun mischief. It's not dreadful, it's not evil, it's not horrific. And so it's almost like Cuddy has the power, without him perhaps even realizing it, to influence the dog rather than the other way around. And here, that's kind of then taken further, because you have this kind of amazing intervention, or at least the attempt at it. And okay, it doesn't necessarily work with the dog, but I just think I agree with Lois. He's a really great character, and he's not. I think it would be a shame to play him as a fool, because I think nice. He's more complex than that.
I mean, yeah. It's complicated slightly because he is the clown, and therefore the clown has some license to be contradictory, and not necessarily always fully add up as a character, because they're doing clown things as well as other things. I'm just liking maybe a closed loop here, following on from Briony's point. If this is effectively, the dog feeds off the evil impulses of people, so it can go to someone who is and do terrible things. But with Cuddy, he's got nothing to work on. There's no energy, and that actually this is a closed circle. Cuddy banishes him.
Yeah.
And that, do we see the dog again? I'm not sure that we do. So it might be actually that, the evil brings him to the world, but actually good can actually cast him out. And that, there's a nice resolution there. Briony, then Eric, then we will need to move on.
Yeah, I agree with what Sarah was saying about how I don't think he's simple. And like what Aliki said in the chat, I don't think he is, as we would describe now, as having learning disabilities. But in terms of how they were thinking about intelligence back then, he's lacking that kind of the cunning side of intelligence. And I just think it's a really interesting point that Lynn made, because we've had a lot of these echoes with and parallels with Faust, and And that is kind of the opposite, whereby his intelligence is kind of why he's drawn into all of it in the first place. So I like that idea, that this kind of not necessarily intelligence, but cunning, intelligence and ambition and everything that goes into that. Yeah, I just like the parallel there.
Eric?
I was going to defend Sawyer because she doesn't get this choice. She doesn't have the choice of being good because everyone's cast her out. She's been beaten. Her house has been set. Well, not her whole house, but she's a social outcast. Therefore, she kind of doesn't get the choice to do good through the dog. Obviously, she's the one who summoned him. Actually, the dog goes, the glass of thy sins is full. Therefore, we've reached the quota for your time on stage. Please let me escort you off, kind of thing. I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting sort of, because we were talking about the gender dynamics as well yesterday of how the dog treats different characters, not just based on their status and stuff, but also based on their sort of gender. And she's the only one he's encountered who is not male. It's a bit unfair.
Yeah, we haven't really talked that much about what was going on with Sawyer and the dog, but in a sense we've had a lot more Sawyer dog that sort of devil's bugging before in other texts as well, whereas Cuddy's doing something slightly different. So maybe we'll talk more about that a little later on, but we need to move on to what is effectively the final scene. This is sometimes split into two separate scenes, but I'm just going to let them run into each other. Act 5, Scene 2, enter Justice Sir Arthur Somerton. I've not currently got anyone to read Somerton, so I'll read it for the moment, unless I can find someone to step in. Warbeck, because basically everybody's on. Warbeck, Carter, and Katherine. So enter lots of people.
Sir Arthur, though the bench hath mildly censured your errors, yet you have indeed been the instrument that wrought all their misfortunes. I would wish you paid down your fine speedily and willingly.
I'll need no urging to it.
If you should, 'twere a shame for you, for if I should speak my conscience, you are worthier to be hanged of the two, all things considered. And now, make what you can of it, but I am glad these gentlemen are freed.
We knew our innocence.
Stephen, can I ask you to read Somerton, actually?
Yeah, okay. And therefore feared it not.
But I am glad that I have you safe.
There is a noise within.
How now? What noise is that?
Young Frank is going the wrong way. Alas, poor youth. Now I begin to pity him.
And sometimes separated here into Scene 3, effectively enter old Thorney and Winifred weeping.
Here let our sorrows wait him. To press nearer the place of his sad death, some apprehensions may tempt our grief too much. At height already, daughter, be comforted.
Comfort and I are too far separated to be joined, but in eternity I shall too much of him that's going thither.
Poor woman, 'twas not thy fault. I grieve to see thee weep for him that hath my pity too.
My fault was lust, my punishment was shame. Yet I am happy that my soul is free, both from consent, foreknowledge, and intent of any murder, but of mine own honor, restored again by fair satisfaction, and since not to be wounded.
Daughter, grieve not, for what necessity forceth, rather resolve to conquer it with patience. Alas, she faints.
My griefs are strong upon me, my weakness scarce can bear them.
Away with her! Hang her! Witch! Yes, enter to execution with that rounding cry. Mother Sawyer, officers with halberds, followed by a crowd of country people.
The witch, that instrument of mischief. Did not she witch the devil into my son-in-law when he killed my poor daughter? Do you hear, Mother Sawyer?
What would you have? Cannot a poor old woman have your leave to die without vexation?
Did not you bewitch Frank to kill his wife? He could never have done 't without the devil.
Who doubts it? But is every devil mine? Would I had one now whom I might command to tear you all in pieces? Tom would have done it before he left me.
Thou didst bewitch Anne Ratcliffe to kill herself.
Churl, thou liest. I never did her hurt. Would you were all as near your ends as I am, that gave evidence against me for it.
I'll be sworn, Master Carter, she bewitched Gammer Washball Sow to cast her pigs a day before she would have farrowed. Yet they were sent up to London and sold for as good Westminster dog pigs at Bartholomew Fair as ever great-bellied alewife longed for.
These dogs will mad me. I was well resolved to die in my repentance. Though 'tis true I would live longer if I might, yet since I cannot, pray torment me not. My conscience is settled as it shall be. All take heed how they believe the devil. At last he'll cheat you.
Thou'dst best confess all truly.
Yet again? Oh, I scarce breath enough left to say my prayers, and would you force me to spend that in bawling? Bear witness, I repent all former evil. There is no damned conjurer like the devil.
Away with
with her,
away.
And she's led off. Enter Frank to execution with officers, etc.
Here's the sad object which I yet must meet, with hope of comfort. If a repentant end make him more happy than misfortune would, suffer him here to be.
Good sirs, turn from me. You will revive affliction almost killed with my continual sorrow.
Frank, would I had sunk in mine own wants, or died but one bare minute ere thy fault was acted.
To look upon your sorrows executes me before my execution.
Let me pray you, sir.
Ah, thou much wronged woman, I must sigh for thee, as he that's only loath to leave the world for that he leaves thee in it unprovided, unfriended. And for me to beg a pity from any man to thee when I am gone is more than I can hope. Nor, to say truth, have I deserved it. But there is a payment belongs to goodness from the great exchequer above. It will not fail thee, Winifred, be that thy comfort.
Let it be thine too, untimely lost young man.
He is not lost who bears his peace within him. Had I spun my web of life out at full length, and dreamed away my many hours in lusts, in surfeits, murders of reputations, gallant sins commended or approved, then, though I had died easily, as great and rich men do, upon my own bed, not compelled by justice, you might have mourned for me indeed. My miseries had been as everlasting as remedialess. But now the law hath not arraigned, condemned with greater vigor my unhappy fact, than I myself have every little sin my memory can reckon from my childhood. A court hath been kept here, where I am found guilty. The difference is, my impartial judge is much more gracious than my faults are monstrous to be named. Yet they are monstrous.
Here's comfort in this penitence.
It speaks how truly you are reconciled, and quickens my dying comfort that was near expiring with my last breath. Now this repentance makes thee as white as innocence, and my first sin with thee, since which I knew none like it, by my sorrow is clearly cancelled. Might our souls together climb to the height of their eternity, and there enjoy what earth denied us, happiness. But since I must survive and be the monument of thy loved memory, I will preserve it with a religious care, and pay thy ashes a widow's duty, calling that end best which, though it stain the name, makes the soul blessed.
Give me thy hand, poor woman. Do not weep. Farewell. Thou dost forgive me?
'Tis my part to use that language.
Oh, that my example might teach the world hereafter what a curse hangs on their heads who rather choose to marry a goodly portion than a dower of virtues. Ah, are you there, gentlemen? There is not one amongst you whom I have not wronged. You most. I robbed you of a daughter, but she is in heaven, and I must suffer for it willingly.
Aye, she's in heaven, and I am so glad to see thee so well prepared to follow her. I forgive thee with all my heart. If thou hadst not ill counsel, thou wouldst not have done as thou didst. The more shame for them.
Spare your excuses to me. I to conceive what you would speak. I would you could as easily make satisfaction to the law as to my wrongs. I'm sorry for you.
And so am I, and heartily forgive you.
I will pray for you, for her sake, who I'm sure did love you dearly.
Let us part friendly too. I am ashamed of my part in thy wrongs.
You are all merciful, and send me to my grave in peace. Sir Arthur, heaven send you a new heart. Lastly to you, sir, and though I have deserved not to be called your son, yet give me leave upon my knees to beg a blessing.
And kneels.
Take it. Let me wet. Take it. Let me wet thy cheeks with the last tears my griefs have left me. Oh, Frank.
Let me beseech you, gentlemen, to comfort my old father. Keep him with ye. Love this distressed widow, and as often as you remember what a graceless man I was, remember likewise that these are both free, both worthy of a better fate than such a son or husband as I have been. All help me with your prayers. On, 'tis just that law should purge the guilt of blood and lust.
Exit Frank, led by the officers.
Go thy ways. I did not think to have shed one tear for thee, but thou hast made me water my plants in spite of my heart. Master Thorney, cheer up, man. Whilst I can stand by you, you shall not want help to keep you from falling. We have lost our children, both ons, the wrong way, but we cannot help it. Better or worse, 'tis now as 'tis.
I thank you, sir. You are more kind than I have cause to hope or look for.
Master Somerton, is Kate yours or no?
We are agreed.
But my faith is past. I should fear to be married. Husbands are so cruelly unkind. Excuse me that I am thus troubled.
Thou shalt have no cause.
Take comfort, Mistress Winifred. Sir Arthur, for his abuse to you and to your husband, is by the bench enjoined to pay you down 1,000 marks.
Which I will soon discharge. Sir, 'tis too great a sum to be employed upon my funeral.
Come. If luck had served Sir Arthur, every man had his due. Somebody might have tottered ere this without paying fines. Like it as you list. Come to me, Winifred. Shalt be welcome. Make much of her, Kate, I charge you. I do not think she's a good wench, and hath had wrongs as well as we. So let's every man home to Edmonton with heavy hearts, yet as merry as we can, though not as we would.
Join, friends, in sorrow. Make of all the best. Harms past may be lamented. not redressed.
Exit everyone apart from Winifred, who gets to do the epilogue.
I am a widow still, and must not sort a second choice without a good report, which though some widows find, and few deserve, yet dare I not presume, but will not swerve from modest hopes. All noble tongues are free, and gentle may we speak one kind word for me.
And thus the play ends with that epilogue. So, Sir Arthur, General Wrongen, who's in many ways a driving factor of many of the problems that have beset people in this play, gets a fine. He gets a fine. That's fine. That's fine there. And this sort of late onset romance thing of Somerton and Katherine reunited and going, no, don't talk about this here. There's executions happening. Just later, next week, have this conversation. As various members of your community are put to death. So yeah, we have two very contrasty execution things here. Sawyer gets away with her hanger witch, whereas Frank gets thou hast made me water my plant spite of my heart. So Sarah, then Briony, then Lynn.
Right, I'm going to say something quite controversial here because people may not agree with me, but if this was me, I would well, okay, first of all, I would do, because the dog had that speech about how he was going to go and serve greatness and corrupted greatness. So when the justice first talks about Sir Arthur, you know, being fined and being mildly censured, I'll need no urging it. That I would make that Sir Arthur's last line, and I would have the dog at that point coming and shadowing his heels, because he's talked about how he's going to go and shadow greatness, and he's the greatest person in this community. So I would have the dog there, the inference being that the dog's going to take care of Sir Arthur. Then they talk about hearing a noise within, and they say, how now, what's that? Young Frank is going the wrong way. Alas, poor youth, now I begin to pity him. I would actually make that noise really blood-curdling and terrifying to suggest that it was Frank being led off to execution, and him, like, sort of basically, you know, freaking out on his way to being taken off to be executed. And then I would actually jump straight from Sawyer being taken out, away with her. I would then jump right to Winifred's epilogue, because like all of that final scene, like all of that business with Frank and his penitence, it's like, dude, get over yourself. I do not want to hear it. The murder he committed was just horrific. It was dreadful. And I say this as someone who was, you know, been through a Spanish tragedy a couple of times now. It's like it was just chilling. When he was so callous, and the way he became more and more callous through the play was just so compelling in an absolutely awful way. And I know, you know, we've got good Christian values here coming up at the end of the play, and maybe the playwrights felt they needed to, or one of the playwrights felt they needed to insert that scene with Frank at the end. But you know what? No, for me as a contemporary audience member, I do not want to sit through 3 pages of Frank whining basically about repentance. I just don't. For me, it's like, it would be like a come down after this brilliant play. I want the play to end with Sawyer, and then by all means give Winifred the last word, and sort out Sir Arthur with the dog. You know, so it appears he's going to get his comeuppance. I realise this is my kind of feminist take on it, you know, my very modern 21st century take on it, but that's what I would do, because I don't like this scene.
Briony.
I like that. I like some of your ideas. And by contrast, I had a much darker thought. What if Sir Arthur was doubling as the dog? Because there's a word, and he's almost as bad as the dog, but he gets away with it all. And then with what Sarah said about how he says about going to greatness at the end, like, just a, even if there's like a little meta wink to the audience moment from Sir Arthur, I think that could be really good and deliciously dark.
Lynn, then Lois.
Yeah, those are both really interesting sort of adaptive moves. My reaction to this whole final sequence was that it's long. It gets tedious. So all this, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I forgive you. I'm terribly sorry. Oh, I forgive you. It's just, it goes on rather a long time. And, my first reaction was, after everyone has behaved so badly, all of this supposedly sincere repentance and reconciliation is going to be really hard to sell. So I think an effort to sort of undermine it or complicate it or make it dubious, I'm all for that. I think for an audience today, that's necessary, because I think the resolvedness and the reconciliation here, I'm not buying it. It doesn't seem persuasive after everyone's been so awful.
Lois, then Aliki.
Yeah. I mean, I love that point about Sir Arthur and the black dog. I think that would work really well. And I agree that a lot of this is too long and that it could be cut, but I would be reluctant to cut all of it because, for one thing, it deals with Winifred. I mean, I think it's quite touching that Carter takes her into his household and that Katherine is going to treat her like a sister. I mean, it's good to know that this, wretched woman is being taken care of. And a lot of Carter's lines in that scene, and particularly the fact that he does say really right at the end, if luck had served Sir Arthur and every man had his due, somebody might have tottered ere this without paying fines, like it as you list. I mean, he's really telling Sir Arthur that he thinks he's the main cause behind all of this, and that it's this, getting away with fines. I mean, it seems to me that a lot of that stuff is quite good, and the two bereaved fathers, sort of coming together. I think one could just hack away at a lot of the stuff that goes before it, but I think it's important to keep this.
Aliki, then Rachael.
I agree, and we've had so much subtext here that I don't think it would take much to kind of bring that out in this scene. Just to make it really, really uncomfortable for the audience, an unreconciling reconciliation. I also love and could not bear to lose Katherine's line that basically says, I'm not sure about marriage, there's this thing where men tend to kill their wives and beat them, and sorry.
Yeah. Rachael.
I actually really I would like to see Frank's apologizing. That's not a real sincere apology. I want to see it kept, but some of the lines in between it, old Thorney, between yet they are monstrous of Frank's, I'd like old Thorney's, to see old Thorney and Winifred's lines in between that and give me thy hand cut out, and have it be him talking to them with this apology that people aren't really buying. And I'd like, Carter and Somerton, Warbeck's and Katherine's, either cut out or made in a way that there's a lot of subtext that none of them have really forgiven him or something like that. And just, I'd love to see his apology played up to the max of not really being sincere, of being one of those, serial killers or something that, they play with people, that he's continuing, that he tries to draw that out as much, because there's so much creepiness that could come from that. And then afterwards, Somerton's weird proposal at the hanging of Katherine's sister's murderer. It's like a different kind of horror that we get here.
I mean, it's interesting, the social etiquette of hangings and executions generally, and just that this is, when you're in a situation, okay, he's guilty, he's murdered someone you care about, But then you're presented with someone who is about to die and is about to see his execution. But in that moment, do people feel that their sense of we should have a good death, that he should repent and he should feel sorry, and that we should say goodbye? I'm just curious on a very pragmatic level of actually what, that we've all been in awkward social situations where we feel things we didn't think we were going to feel. This is a very extreme example of that. And I wonder if there's something to be mined out of that. I'm really interested in the difference between what he gets and what Sawyer gets. And if you don't have his, you don't then get that contrast. So that interests me as well. That there is seems to be quite a deliberate distinction going on there. Eric, then Briony, then Lynn, then Stephen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking while we were reading it. And also, if you cut out this, there's a part of me going, yeah, we should cut it out because it's annoying, like having the forgiveness part and stuff. But then also, there's a part of me going, just let him have this what the fuck moment. Why? Because you have it from the beginning of the scene where Arthur is forgiven. He gets away with a fine kind of thing. If you can afford to pull off crime, then you can. And also, there's a part of me wondering, like, okay, what's Winifred's part in all this? Has she been faking the whole thing as well? Because obviously she was Arthur's maid and married Frank, possibly to get out of the situation. I don't know, or not. I'm just doubting everybody. Maybe that's just me being paranoid. But because there is this sort of implication that she was pregnant because of Arthur, not because of Frank. I'm like, who's really telling the truth here? What is going on here? I don't know. But then, because also she was the maid in the household. I'm assuming that there was no she had no power in that situation. Therefore, possibly, it's possible that any consent on her part was kind of forced.
Briony, then Lynn, then Lois.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting message about forgiveness that you could use in a very modern way as well. Because it was something that we were taught in religion at school that it was really powerful the way they did it, and it stayed with me, where a lot of things from secondary school have long since killed those brain cells. But they showed a video of the mother of one of the kids who had been one of the victims of the Moors murderers, who the body of her child was never found in the end in her lifetime, and she never forgave, and she was so consumed by the anger and hatred and all the negative feelings that are completely understandable. And then they showed you somebody else some parents of a child who'd been murdered when she was backpacking, and they had forgiven the victim and they were very Christian about it. And as somebody who's an atheist, I struggle to understand it, but you could see for yourself the difference it made to the person. So I think, just there is something, although it's probably not written in such a modern way, because it was all about forgiveness and saving your eternal, your soul and all that. But there is a very modern application for that still.
Lynn, then Stephen, then Lois. You're muted at the present, Lynn.
So Rob was saying something about the contrast between how Sawyer's fate and Frank's, even though they're both executed, there's a very different feel about that. And I would actually, throw Sir Arthur into that. And it's just, I can't help noticing that the severity of their fates, the badness of how it turns out for each of those characters tracks with their social status. The high status character is publicly shamed, but gets away with a fairly hefty fine, although probably not a crippling fine. Frank, who's lower gentry, is executed, but is able to reconcile himself with the people he has wronged and with his family. And Sawyer, who's the lowest status person, says she's sorry, but she's still angry and she's still refusing to talk. and she's still reviled by everybody. So your rank tracks with how miserable your outcome is.
Yes, and here's the thing. Sawyer started the play having a really miserable life and has ended the play without a miserable life. There's nothing. Sawyer gets nothing apart from some adventures with a dog, and even they're pretty disappointing. The dog has turned out not to be the golden ticket by any stretch of the imagination. Stephen, then Lois.
Yes, I'm just wondering if the point of this ending, which I agree with Sarah about it, really isn't to sort of divert our minds away from the characters and out into society as a whole. It seems it's incredibly rushed, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons it doesn't work. But it seems to me we're getting a sort of almost anthropological overview of various social mechanisms for repairing damages, so that if this happens, this is what we do, or this is what we can do. This is how society copes with X, Y, Z, and we get this kind of conveyor belt procession going along. There's too many of them, and it's too glib. But maybe the point is not anything other than, well, this is what society does with this stuff. Now you can, the ambiguity that everybody's noted, we can still look at society's mechanism for dealing with X, Y, Z and think, nah, that's no good, or that doesn't work. But it seems maybe that's why this stuff lands with such a chunk right at the end of the play, is it's getting us to think not about what's happened in the play, but about the society that the play is depicting.
Lois.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points. One about the sort of betrothal of Katherine and Somerton. I think this has already been pretty much settled earlier, and when I don't think he's actually proposing to her in the middle of this. I mean, it's just, Carter says, are you getting married? And he says, we are agreed. And she says, but my faith is past, which means if I hadn't already accepted your proposal, I should fear to be married. I mean, it's not quite clear whether she's making a feeble joke or just, she says, excuse me, that I am thus troubled, but it could be her feeling that she said the wrong thing anyway at this point. At any rate, it's an odd bit. I mean, I think quite a lot of that scene could be played as embarrassment, people aware they're not quite saying the right thing or that they're going through the motions and so on. I mean, the other thing is this point about Winifred. She did tell Sir Arthur in the very first scene that now that she was married to Frank, she wanted nothing to do with him, that she was intending to be, an honest wife from that point on. These dramatists of this period are often much more sympathetic to the sort of woman who is called a whore, which just means anyone who has sex without marriage. They're much more sympathetic to characters like that than they used to be. And I think that she's treated on the whole pretty sympathetically. Obviously, if you wanted to do a really dark ending, you could have her and Sir Arthur making eyes at each other and obviously intending to get together secretly later. But I really don't think that's what the ending is about.
Yes, we've got a few minutes in lieu at the end here. There's lots of questions about doing this as a modern production, of which there have been many. This has got a very, very good modern production history. There isn't, in a sense, that pressure to say, well, what would we do with this? Lots of people have found lots of ways through. It is an averagely long play in the sense that it's going to fill the better part of 3 hours of your life, including interval, with options and questions of cutting to shape the production how you'd like to see it. So I'm not going to go around the whole room for final thoughts, but does anyone have any additional final thoughts about the play overall, for those who are here for the play overall, or just any additional thoughts about staging it? So many questions about how cute is the dog? I mean, the images I've seen of modern productions, the dog tends to be bed punk. And I'm going, well, maybe the dog's quite cute. I'm thinking maybe a little poodle for its final appearance. I don't know. Is it a different breed of dog each time? I wonder. Anyway, Aliki, Lynn, Eric.
Oh, so much to say for just a third of the play. I mean, I would love to put this on. I think it's fascinating. I think one of its subjects is misogyny, and it's really interesting from a culture that's at least more overtly misogynist than ours to see a play about that. Uh, you were talking about Sir Arthur, whose sins I don't much know, but yeah, there's Kate Mann, the philosopher Kate Mann, uses the terms empathy. And I think that might be appropriate, both to him getting away and to the forgiveness that's extended to Frank, whereas it isn't to Sawyer. Um, yeah, I've kind of got lost here in what I wanted to say, but what a fascinating play full of creepy, distressing, and illuminating scenes. I'm intrigued.
Lynn.
Yeah, Aliki has a lot of great moments, a lot of great scenes, and they actually, sort of weave together generally quite well. What I've been thinking about again is the conversation or the relationship between this and Faustus. I don't know if we're sort of imposing that from our distance in time, because they're both about selling your soul to the devil. But I would love to teach these plays in conversation, because in a way they're thematically tied, but in a way they're really different. Faust is a man, I think Stephen was pointing this out yesterday, who kind of has achieved everything. He's got prestige, he's got worldly success, but he's not satisfied with it, and he sells his soul to the devil. And what he does with it is basically parlor tricks. I'm going to build a brass wall around Germany. It never happens. That his achievement seems so petty, and he goes to the devil. And this poor woman, Mother Sawyer, sells her soul to the devil because she has nothing. She feels like she really has no other choice. They think I'm a witch, I may as well be a witch, and she does a lot of damage. So it's really interesting that this very low status character, whose motivations seem to us at least more understandable, really does wreak havoc. And Faust, for all his intelligence and his power and his prestige, seems to waste his 25 years doing conjuring tricks.
It's also the contrast with the Merry Devil of Edmonton, which is one we have read, which we might this prompts us to go back to, because there are interesting, more thematic exchanges with what's going on there than overt ones like with Faustus. I think there's definitely a conversation, and for that matter, a mini season that can be programmed. I like things which have seasons, and people like witches and witchcraft and magic and stuff. So it's not like I'm thinking with my hat on of going, there's an in here. I don't know who was next. I'll go to Briony, and then Eric, and then Stephen.
Yeah, I get what Lynn was saying there, but she didn't really. The one thing she wanted was for old Banks to die, and that never happened. And everything else that happened, it was out of her control. It was, like I said, it was almost the spiraling of events where the dog was just doing whatever he could and wanted to have a bit of fun. But yeah, I absolutely adored all of this. I was really worried about how it was going to end. But even though there were some problems with the end, I think they were intentional problems. It didn't feel like sometimes when you get to the end and there's just loose ends, or sometimes when you get to the end and everything's rammed together, let's marry off a couple of people, they all live happily ever after. It was just as solid as the rest of it had been. And I think the fact that they didn't do a lot with Sir Arthur at the end, I think that probably was intentional, because this play's been doing all sorts of things about equality generally and how people play off each other.
Eric, then Stephen, then Rachael.
I was so entranced listening to the people, I almost forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, no, it's an interesting play, and as you said, there can be seasons. You can have Merry Devil at Edmonton, Dr. Faustus, and so many other plays that were name dropped in there. Mother Bombay, just like so many. And just, I don't know, it's an interesting play to do because, as we've said, for all the reasons that we've listed above, And I don't know, the unsatisfying ending feels like sort of, or I don't know, satisfying in some ways. I don't know. Feels like when you get to the end of well, either a series or a video game, and you're sort of just like intently going and what you want to find out what happens next one. You've binged the entire season, 10 seasons of a series on Netflix or something, although we endorse that, but sponsors please. But
no sponsorship here. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
And but yeah, you binge like 10 seasons and you get to the final episode where it's all do or die kind of thing, and this is the ending, and you're like, what why would you do that? It just feels so outrageous that it just kind of I don't know, I think it would land well in terms of, or badly depending on how you define it.
Stephen, muted at present.
Right. I think the dog is the vice. I think the dog is a mid-Tudor vice, something like Amber Dexter, because you have this with, or at least the vices that I like, the ones I like playing, where they are party animals, as it were, and they can kind of create this tremendous amount of fun, but they're also Hannibal Lecter kind of cold-blooded, psychopathically toying with the pathetic humans. And so I think one way to do the dog is the kind of dogginess is the fun part. The dog, not necessarily cute, but kind of fun and great physicality, and then just drops that completely and into kind of scary psycho stuff. Rather like somebody at the moment who's wearing a dog on their head.
As is my wont. Rachael, final thought, because I need to close the session.
The Faust comparison that Lynn brought up, it reminds me of like H.G. Wells' Invisible Man versus Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. That Wells's Invisible Man, I want to compare to Faust, and then Ellison's Invisible Man to Sawyer in this, and that Faust is in such a place of privilege that the wrongs he does is practically invisible, and he takes advantage of that privilege to do the most evil. Sawyer is so invisible and so easy to take advantage of that she gets taken advantage of by this evil. And I feel her repentance, even though she's done this evil stuff, is sincere at the end. And Frank's is very insincere. Maybe you could play with that contrast in a production.
Right. Well, sadly, we have run out of time to do any more on The Witch of Edmonton. All it remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Were it not possible for thee to become an honest dog yet?